What's up, everybody? Coach Ben here. It's been a while. A few things happened besides COVID. I'm a father. My wife had twins. So if anybody cares about my personal life, there it is. Anyway, Jim, what's up, man?
Well, first off, I want to say congratulations because this is the first time I've seen him after the birth of his Jedi Council. And I say that the connection is Luke and Leia were twins. He had twins. One's a boy, one's a girl. And on that, it got us thinking about Jiu-Jitsu and MMA.
Yes.
Jiu-Jitsu and
Mainly
MMA.
because of what I've been seeing.
Right. So it's a pretty consistent thread that's been around for quite a while. And what we're going to focus on specifically about Jiu-Jitsu and MMA is the ability or inability to stand up or control the distance on the ground, ironically. Right?
Yeah. It's I think it's one of the biggest problems in MMA for grapplers. And even more so with jiu-jitsu specific athletes, like fighters whose base is in jiu-jitsu, right? Why do people say, nowadays that, wrestling is the best base? It's because you can dictate, this is very obvious, dictate where the fight goes. And most of the time people think about why wrestling is a good base is because you can take your opponent down. But I actually think that wrestling is a great base, not just because you can take people down. It's because you don't have to stay on the ground. You don't have to stay on your back or on the bottom. Okay, you don't necessarily have to be on your back to be on the bottom. You could be sitting up. You could be stuck against a cage. But bottom position in MMA is generally a losing position, right? Like if me and you are fighting and I take you down and I'm in your guard, close guard, and I'm punching you, even if I'm not hurting you that badly, as long as I'm not stuck in a submission or you're not destroying me with elbows or something, there are situations where you could win from the bottom. But for the most part, most judges will score it for the person on top. Let's say if I have 3 minutes of top control time and then maybe it's pretty even on the ground and then it's pretty even standing, who's going to win that round? It's me. Almost certainly, right? There's very few times where you're going to win that round if I have 3 minutes of top time. So, this is one of these things that I feel that, at least with me, with my academy, there's a reason why jiu-jitsu people are bad at standing up, right? Do you know why, Jim? It's very obvious, but it's also kind of nuanced as to why. I can go into detail, but I want to ask you.
Well, yeah, my opinion would be because a lot of the focus is on a lot of the focus on training in jiu-jitsu is when you get down to the ground.
Yes.
Or even getting it to the ground.
Yes.
But getting up from the ground, it really doesn't happen in jiu-jitsu.
Right. We don't really train it.
It's not focused.
It's not a focus because when the fight's on the ground, you're usually thinking of, the fight is where I want it to be.
Home. Yeah.
I'm home. That is great in sport jiu-jitsu. We're not talking about sport jiu-jitsu. Sport jiu-jitsu and the gi especially, being on the bottom is awesome. You have grips, you open guard, there's easy stuff, close guard. You have so many attacks. MMA is a different animal. There's sweat, there's blood, slipperiness, plus you're losing. There's gravity against you. Physics is against you. You cannot really do striking damage as much as your opponent can do striking damage. And most importantly, the judges will score that round for your opponent. I've seen so many fights be lost because just the fighter can't get up. They can't get up. They cannot stop their opponent from just basically laying praying. There's a term for this, getting wrestle fucked is kind of the term. This term used in MMA a lot. Who wrestle fucks people all the time? Khabib. This is the obvious people that just Kamaru, Usman.
John Fitch back in his day.
Colby to a certain degree. Before he developed striking, he would just smother guys. John Fitch. Yeah, these are
going back. Ronnie
Coleman.
Yeah, Ronnie Coleman.
Mark Coleman, I think.
Mark Coleman.
Ronnie Coleman, the bodybuilder.
But yeah, bodybuilder. Sorry.
I don't know. He probably has a nasty top game too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these are all things that I feel like people in jiu-jitsu need to work on. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you said we don't work on it, right? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a couple other reasons. I owned my academy for like 5 years. I'll tell you why we don't practice stand-ups, but other than the things that you've already brought up. Space. A lot of jiu-jitsu academies aren't big, so you can't. We trained in a friggin' upstairs closet. So like when we were going up, how you can't be standing up. We couldn't even move on the ground. There's too many people. How are you going to stand up? You stand up, it's going to be the most dangerous thing in the world. And even me, before I kind of developed these ideas, I would tell my students, hey, get back down, get back down. No wrestling, because I didn't want them to get hurt.
Safety, right?
Safety, space. I was afraid they would land on somebody else, and these are things where in COVID times, I think it's a great opportunity because there's less students, it just is what it is. You have less students, there's less people training jiu-jitsu, there's going to be less people on the mats. This is a good time to not necessarily start all your matches standing. I think that is very dangerous, but let's say we're grappling on the ground and I stand up, right? Let's continue. Let's keep working, and let's even add elements like the wall and things like that, especially if you train MMA. And I think all jiu-jitsu practitioners, unless you're heavily into sport jiu-jitsu, like Atos or something, I think you should have some elements that transfer to MMA, just because that's kind of where what jiu-jitsu was made for, right? Fighting, on the street, MMA, self-defense, and things like that. So what are certain things that led me to, by the way, I didn't even finish. Another reason that we don't train to stand up is because people don't even know how to, like we know technical stand, right? Technical stand is really just the beginning. John Danaher calls it, heisting, right? Heisting is kind of like a technical stand, but you kind of go halfway, right? And there's so many things that they're just missing. It's just that game right there is missing in a lot of people. And did you watch Gordon and Mateus?
I did, yeah.
What did Gordon do to Mateus so many times that Mateus Denise couldn't deal with? It was the half heist, snap down, and then wrestling in that intermediary position. Gordon's not a great wrestler, I don't think. He doesn't claim to be a great wrestler, but he was doing. I would say Mateus is a better wrestler than him, but he was doing things and taking Mateus down because Mateus wasn't used to somebody standing up like that. Like I have students that do that to me, and most of my MMA fighters, I train them to do that. When they stand up, a lot of times, even me, I'm like, whoa, like what's going on? What, you standing up? Like what's going on here? Like we gotta, this is jiu-jitsu. Like what's going on here? Are we doing MMA now? So that shock should not be there, because if you have that, especially in MMA, you don't, there's no time to think right there, right? You need to immediately engage your opponent again. And even in sport jiu-jitsu, I feel like, Gordon showed it, many people show it all the time, is if you can almost easily sweep people if you just know how to stand up and they pause for that 1 millisecond. If they pause for 1 minute, I'm on their neck. If they pause for one, I'm stepping around the guard. I'm stepping around them, and they're going to now be in a turtle while I'm on top. So standing up, I feel it's so important. Watch, the next UFC, right? The next UFC, I think, is this Saturday. It's like
Brian Ortega.
Yeah, Ortega and Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
Right. I have a feeling that, let's say the fight goes to the ground. This is kind of not the greatest example, because Brian Ortega is a wizard on his back. Okay, he may be the exception.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions. Yeah.
Damian Maia, Brian Ortega, this guy Paul Sass, Oliveira, these Charles Oliveira. There are exceptions. Fabricio, yeah. There are certain guys that are the top of the top. I'd say like maybe 10 guys in the world. You got to be very careful with Mackenzie Dern. These are people that you got to be very careful when they're on their back. But how was Mackenzie Dern beat in her first loss in the UFC? The girl that beat her, I believe her name was, I forgot her name, but she's also a very good fighter and a black belt. Beat Dern by just outstriking her and taking her down a couple times, and Mackenzie couldn't get up. She couldn't get up, and she lost decision. She wasn't gonna get submitted by the girl, or probably not even knocked out. It was a pretty they're pretty small, lower weight class, hard to get finished. But you want to guarantee that you lose a fight, to have no way to get up.
Stay on the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, stay on the bottom. There are people who I could train who are just freak athletes. Maybe like I'll grab an NFL football player or something, and I'll just train this guy to stay on top in the half guard or the close guard. And this guy can probably go 5-0 in MMA, even against people who have, pretty good jiu-jitsu. Just don't get submitted and stay on top and throw punches. You could win. Because the other person, although they might be more experienced and more skilled, they can't move. And that's a huge problem, right? I can't really think of too many people who are incredibly good at standing up. But you know why you can't think of it? Because those people are already champions. Or they never end up on the bottom anyway.
Yeah, they don't get it. I mean, it's always ballyhooed. Like Jose Aldo had his insane takedown defense.
Yeah.
And even BJ Penn, he had great takedown defense.
Aldo actually is a great example of somebody that can get up. Him and the alpha male guys are great at never letting their shoulders hit the ground. Yeah. They just scoot out
Max
and then
Holloway,
start.
Another one. So, I mean, it's definitely a skill. And I think it's such a small detail. It's not necessarily the most sexy thing. Like, get up. No, trust me, the ability to get up, whenever you're able to isolate any kind of athletic movement in a fight, that you can weaponize it.
Yeah.
Weaponize it.
It's not just getting up, by the way. It's not like, all right, just stand up.
No,
there's
anything.
Technique.
So what I was going to say, what I was going to add to that, if you could master a clinch, not even a takedown, not even a strike after, but if you can master a clinch, control that range, control the damage, right?
Yeah.
And you can weaponize it, whether it's an arm drag, whether it's a clinch. And in this particular discussion, we're talking about the get up. If you could master a get up at will virtually, and then maybe even use that like any kind of strategic or strategy.
I would say it's a skill in and of itself,
Absolutely.
similar to wrestling.
So paint this picture is you've been getting up. This person, they want to take down.
Mm-hmm.
The wrestler because you did a whole training camp. So the takedown's going to happen, the get up. Takedown, the get up. Now on the next sequence, I'm not going to get up. I'm going to fake the get up. And then I'm going to jump right back into a triangle or an arm bar, a sweep that puts me back. There's so many things, and that's the importance of the get up.
Right. A lot of people think that, let's say if I were to face, let's say I'm a good striker. These people used to exist all the time, by the way. They're kind of rare now. But let's say I'm a good striker and I have good jiu-jitsu, but I don't have good wrestling. I never wrestled. Whatever, right? There's people that come to mind. Miguel Torres was a guy back in the day that had this. Yeah. Comes to mind, right? These people are rare nowadays. But let's say that it was a person like that. And I would say many people in jiu-jitsu are very similar to that. They have decent striking, decent hands, they did Muay Thai or something on the side, and then they're good at jiu-jitsu, high-level jiu-jitsu, but their wrestling sucks, If that person decided to do MMA, I would tell that person, look, and they're facing a wrestler or somebody who has good takedowns, you're not going to be able to stop this person's takedowns. Do not try to, spend all your time wrestling and neglecting your other skills, because all that's going to do is you're going to be just in the realm of competent with sprawls and wrestling, and then they're going to have, so much more experience, and they're going to take you down anyway. Forget about that. Focus on this. Get up. Okay, let them take you down. Okay, over and over again. But you're going to get up, and then they're going to get tired. And then you're going to, fatigue them to a point where they're going to make a mistake, or you're going to destroy them on the feet where you have an advantage after they've, shot for the fourth time and you stuffed them, on the last two attempts, right? It's more important to be able to get up, I think, than to be able to stop the initial shot. This is, an arguable point. But the reason I say that is because there's so many ways that you can end up on your back. You don't know what can happen. I did amateur MMA. I remember one of the fight. I don't even know how I ended up on the ground. I slipped. I threw a terrible punch. I don't know what happened. Maybe threw a kick. It was a long time ago. I'm on the ground. I was on the ground the rest of the round. I for sure lost that round. I didn't know how to get up. I had no idea. I was trying to wall walk the cage. There's just people screaming at me. I really should have had a system where I just needed to get to a certain frame, a certain position, and okay, once I get to this position, it's time to get up. And all the best fighters that you've seen in history have this skill. Somebody that comes to mind old school is Shogun. Shogun used to have, Damian Maia also. These two people, Shogun and Damian Maia, they're two people who had the best half guard underhook stand-ups I've ever seen. Shogun, as soon as he gets that underhook from half guard or side control, wherever he is, he just uses this underhook as a frame, does a heist out, technical stands up, and he's standing. He's already in the clinch. He's in his spot, Muay Thai. Damian Maia, same thing. He would just boom. He would just hit that underhook on you. If you don't get taken down, he's standing with you and he's going to shoot next. So that's old school classic examples. Last UFC, there was a great example. This guy, I don't know if you saw the fight, Jim, but it was like the first fight of the night, I think. Tajir Ulanbekov is Khabib's childhood friend. He made his UFC debut. If you have Fight Pass or if you have ESPN Plus or whatever, watch that fight. Ulanbekov has some of the best stand-ups I've ever seen. And some of them are pretty risky, to be honest, but I think he knows what he's doing. There's a specific one that I put on my Patreon, so if you want to check out I think it's public, so just come check out my Patreon, where he gets a guillotine. Did you see this, Jim?
No,
Okay, so he gets a guillotine chin strap, and he uses that as a frame to technical stand out, and then he does something that most jiu-jitsu guys don't do, which is in the clinch, he overhooks the arm as soon as they stand. Why is the overhook important? Because a lot of times jiu-jitsu people or people who are, I shouldn't say jiu-jitsu people, just people that don't know how to get up properly, they'll stand up and expose the back. It happens all the time. People will stand up errantly and expose the back. So it's not just standing up. It's standing up and then creating enough distance or frame so that you can get to your dominant position. There's like a whole, I would say it's almost like a whole nother discipline of martial art. It's a part of wrestling, but it's that transition from down to up that doesn't exist in traditional wrestling. Why? Because there's no strikes, and also because the rule sets of wrestling you don't get up that way. You usually expose your back to get up because it's easier to get up exposing your back, as opposed to getting up in a manner that you're going to end up facing your opponent, and you have to defend your neck and all the limbs and strikes. So getting up in MMA is like it should be. Let's say there's 3 skills in MMA, right? Striking, grappling, and wrestling, right? The main skills. I would say getting up off of the ground and also stopping your opponent from getting up. That should be a 4th skill. If there's a 4th skill in MMA, I would consider that the 4th skill. Another match. If you go back far, this guy, Mike Grundy, great wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, faces a guy named Movsar Evloev. I've talked about this fight. Movsar is undefeated, one of the best wrestlers not one of the best wrestlers, one of the best fighters in the UFC. He's outgunned wrestling. He's a great wrestler, but this guy Grundy is a different level wrestler. Plus, he's stronger. Movsar just keeps getting up. He keeps getting up, destroys him on the feet, and Grundy just keeps shooting. And what do you think happens by the 3rd round? You can't take that many shots and still be alive. Right. So Grundy eventually gets gassed. Movsar basically kills him to a decision. It's one of the easiest fights I think a guy could win. Not easy, but he was in a pretty tight DARS too, but not easy. But it's a path that is solidified. Like you're not. The thing with dealing with wrestlers and people that take you down is it's not that dangerous. They're not going to knock you out with a takedown. You just have to get up. Right? It's not like a dangerous striker that throws a punch and you get KO'd any second. It's not like that. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that if you're not training standing up, let's just do it tonight. If you're training tonight, just have you and your training partner tonight start from half guard, whatever, close guard, and just say, look, I want you to keep me down as long as you can, and I'm going to try to get up. If I get up, we restart. Don't even worry about technique. Just try to get up. It is not easy, man. It's easier from other positions like the half guard with underhook. Turtle is pretty hard to stop somebody from standing up if they do the right things. But it ain't easy. It's a skill, and it's crazy to me. It's not crazy because I didn't train it either, but it's something that is neglected at this moment in time that I think can bring a lot of value to your success in any MMA type scenario, and also sport jiu-jitsu, right? Go watch Gordon and Mateus. He did all those things, so that's pretty much it. Just that's the idea. Getting off of the ground,
Yeah, it could sway a fight. It could positionally, it could sway a fight, or it could set something else up.
Fights are won and lost on whether or not you can stand up. This is such an important point that, I was. I remember one time Costa, the
Paulo,
Paulo Palachinha, he was training with Waleed, and all they were doing, I was like, this is such weird. This is what kind of sparked this. This was many, many years ago. Like, I think at this point, probably like almost 2 years now. I don't remember if it was at Muscle Farm or not. But anyway, they were training, and Waleed was just in like grabbing Paulo's legs, and Paulo just kept hitting the same half guard technical stand with a frame, just pushing him away and standing up over and over. They did this for like 30 minutes. And I was watching them like, man, what are they doing? Why do they keep doing this? This is pretty easy. It's like technical stand, it's every day. And so I tried it that night with some of my students, and I couldn't get up. I was like, what the hell's going on here? I can't. And after like the 10th try, I was like, okay, I need to make sure I frame here, and okay, now I got it, right? But like I didn't know how to do that because I never practiced. So, I think the top guys are brilliant at getting up, or they're dominant from the top anyway. So, like Khabib doesn't need to get up because you need to get up. He's stopping you from getting up. So
anyway, chances are he's the one who took you down.
Yeah. So those are the two skills that I think people need to practice in jiu-jitsu. That is, it's almost a shock, when people first do it to you, right? When you hold somebody down and they start getting up, you're like, what the hell's going on? Why are you not like attacking my arms? Like, you're standing up. What is this? What is this shit? So go out there and practice. I think it will be valuable.
All right. Well, there it is. Go out there, practice your get-ups. Practice your distance management, and log in to Ben's Instagram account at Coach B. Or don't log in. Contact.
Here's my password.
Contact Coach Ben and start this discussion. I'm sure he'll present some exercises.
Check
some
the
drills.
Patreon. There's some public videos on there on some breakdowns I did. Pretty amateur right now, but once the iPhone 12 comes out, maybe
they're going to get so much better.
They're going to get better. 5G, baby.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks again, Coach. And once again, guys, thanks for joining us on this topic and this discussion, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
All right. Thanks.